Hi guys. Okay, so we're going to go back to reading the Calumet County Sheriff's Department police reports. And like I said before, I'm just going to skim through all this stuff really quick, just to kind of give you an idea of what's on each page that has any kind of importance at all. Let's see. Sergeant Bill Tyson on November 5th, 2005. He said he did receive a telephone call at his residence from Calumet County Dispatch. Sorry, I've got the window open. I guess they're like, I don't know, loading a freaking dump truck out there or something. He said, upon my arrival at the Sheriff's Department, I did wait for Deputy Jennifer Bass to arrive. And then they proceeded to the Avery property to assist with the investigation. Upon our arrival at approximately 14:45 hours, I did make contact with Investigator Wiegert and Investigator Steer. Investigator Steer informed me that I should go to the junkyard to relieve a Manitowoc County deputy who was standing by Teresa Hawbuck's vehicle. This is when Bill Tyson was very first sent to take over for Calumet, guarding Teresa's vehicle. And Deputy Bass was... Let's see. Deputy Bass and I proceeded to the junkyard where we were met by several law enforcement officers who were keeping a crime scene log. Approximately 14:45 hours. Upon approaching Teresa Hawbuck's vehicle, the Manitowoc County deputy exited the area. While standing guard over a green Toyota RAV4, I could see the sky was getting very dark and there was a mist in the air. There was talk amongst several of the officers to put a tarp over the green Toyota RAV4 to protect any possible evidence on the exterior of the vehicle. Alright, so this is talk about putting the tarp up. The tarp was produced and I did assist in getting objects from in back of other vehicles to help weigh down the tarp to prevent it from blowing away. Extreme care was used by the officers to prevent the tarp from touching the green Toyota RAV4. Once the tarp was in place, Investigator Steer notified me that my assistance was needed back at the command post. And then he goes on to say, Deputy Bass did relieve me in protecting the green Toyota RAV4. I exited the crime scene area of the green Toyota RAV4 at approximately 15:10 hours. Okay, this is important, I think, because I've read in another document that Deputy Bass was left alone. As soon as they finished tarping the vehicle, she was left alone with it. And then you'll know she is Wendy Baldwin's cross-burning buddy, and she's the one who went to pick up Stephen Avery when he was arrested. So it's kind of interesting. She was left there alone. Yeah. At approximately 1700 hours, I did make contact with the representative of the Great Lakes Search and Rescue Association. There were 4 dogs that would be assisting in search of the junkyard. I was informed that there should be a deputy with each of the dog handlers, and I did assign Deputy Kenneth R. Matuzak to go with Grace Salm, Deputy Daniel Kacharski to go with Elaine McLaren, and Deputy Gary Schultz to go with Robert Kramer. At 17:20 hours, the dogs and deputies began their search of the junkyard. Alright, at approximately 18:55 hours, Investigator Baldwin informed me that the dogs and deputies had finished their search. From what I understand, Wendy Baldwin went with them on that search. And that was her first go-through, I suppose, or her first report where she said that they didn't find anything. So she hasn't yet found or reported that she's found this rag or whatever. But we're getting to it. It'll come up later on. All right, now we're going on to the next one. It's from November 5th, a report from Investigator Gary Steer. On Saturday, November 5th, 2005, at approximately 1:30 p.m., Joshua R. Radant signed a Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department consent to search form for his gravel stone quarry. At approximately 5 p.m., Investigator Steer of the Calumet County Department had spoken with Josh Randant at a deer camp off of Cuss Road on the edge of the Randant gravel pit. I know I'm saying his name wrong, so I'm sorry. Randant stated on Monday, October 31st, at approximately 4:30 p.m., he drove up to his deer camp off of Cuss Road through his gravel pit and observed a fire in the proximity of Stephen Avery's residence or on the Avery property. Randant informed Investigator Steer on Monday shortly after 4:30 p.m. Randant was driving to his deer camp through his quarry where he observed a large fire on the Stephen Avery property located by the Red House. Randant indicates he remembers it being right after 4:30 because he had an employee that had just come to work to take another employee's shift at 4:30. Randant indicated it was partly cloudy or partly sunny day and he had clear visibility from his location while he was driving to his deer camp. Randant indicated he did not observe any people standing next to the fire or any vehicles located on the Avery property, which I think is, pretty important because he's mentioning this fire just, out of nowhere, just randomly. Hey, by the way, there was a fire at the Avery property on, Halloween, and I saw it, and it was right around this time. He is giving consent to search, and during their searches, this is where they find some of the bones, some of Teresa's bones in the quarry, in one of his quarries. So that's pretty interesting to see. Alrighty, so we're going to go on to November 5th, a report from John Dietering. On Saturday, November 5th at 14:05 hours, he's interviewing Earl Avery and getting a consent to search his property. Earl Avery did allow me to review the outgoing calls made by him on his cellular telephone, and the only call that he had made was to a number he identified as Stephen Avery's cell phone number at approximately 7 a.m. on the morning of Saturday, November 5th. I inquired of Earl Avery if he would allow Detective Jacobs and I to perform a cursory search of his residence. He advised me that that was perfectly acceptable with him. Nothing of evidentiary value was located. Apparently I can't read today. Alright. Dietering questioned Earl Avery as to remarks he made to Investigator Wiegert about Stephen and Earl sighting in some firearms in the pit the previous evening. He stated that when he arrived in the area where they were target practicing, immediately north of where Miss Halbach's vehicle was located, he stated it was starting to get dark and that he did not notice the vehicle, but he was not really looking for it either. Earl Avery stated that he fired 22 rounds of ammunition while at the pit. He stated that this was a box and 2 rounds. He was asked how many rounds Stephen had fired, and his response was none. Alrighty. So, we're going to go on to November 5th, a report by Lieutenant Kelly Sipple. At approximately 2:30 p.m. on Saturday, November 5th. On the morning of Saturday, November 5th, friends of Teresa were searching the Avery Auto Salvage Yard where they located her motor vehicle off the southwest quadrant of the property. Shortly after arriving at the Avery property, I was teamed up with 2 Manitowoc County Sheriff Department investigators to check the outbuildings on the property for Teresa Halbach. At this point, we believed there was a possibility that Teresa was still alive. The first garage we searched would have been a red garage, and we found a snowmobile and a Suzuki Samurai motor vehicle. We also found numerous .22 shell casings located on the floor in the garage. We were unable to locate Teresa Halbach in the building. We then moved east towards a light blue home and a light blue garage. We entered the garage, and it was here that we found a carcass of a deer hanging. Again, we were unable to find Teresa Halbach. Of course, this is at Barb Janda's garage where the deer was hanging. Behind the light blue house, we observed 4 garbage cans. 2 of the garbage cans contained clothing. One had what appeared to be a shovel sticking into it with a pair of men's underwear hanging from the shovel. We also observed reddish clothing material on the second garbage can. I don't really remember anything about those, so I'd like to know where those went. Any of this clothing. I've not seen any photos of this. I've not seen any evidence in the property or whatever mentioning any clothing. Let's see, going on. We then entered a shop which appeared to be used as a building that stored transmissions and engine parts in the back half. The building had an office area on the north end, along with a workshop in the northwest corner and a wood burner. Just something interesting of note, I guess. Upon entering the office area, we observed a missing person poster with Teresa's name and information and her picture on it posted in the office, which I thought was pretty cool. Apparently they, were going to post this, and, if I was to guess, I would imagine that this would have been something that Teresa's, was it her cousin, maybe, or something? The man, I can't even remember his name. We're going to get to him later, where he comes by and talks with the Averys. I believe he talks with Stephen, actually, and talks about how cooperative and helpful he was. But anyway, we'll get to that at some point. Alright. This is on November 5th, 2005, Investigator John Dietering report. On Saturday, November 5th at 14:57 hours, sometime after arriving back from the Earl Avery residence, Dietering was contacted by Lieutenant James Link. Link indicated that a member of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department had contact with Stephen Avery's fiancée, identified as Jody Stachowski. Jody told the individual from the law enforcement she spoke with that in telephone conversations she had with Stephen Avery, Stephen told her that Bobby Dassey had had contact with Teresa Halbach after Stephen did. I find that pretty interesting because when she's asked about that, she denies that that's, when Bobby's asked about that, he denies that that's true, of course. But yeah, apparently Jody and Stephen had a phone conversation on a Friday, I believe it was, where Stephen mentions to her that Bobby saw Teresa after she left Stephen. It's just interesting. I don't know why. I mean, like I said, I'm just going to go through all these really quick, read the highlights of each page if there is any, and, so you don't have to read through all 1,116 pages of these. I will do that for you and highlight anything I can find of interest to talk about. And, at the end, we'll try to put it all together and see what we find. All right, so check us out on Clue TV, and thanks for watching.